Okay, let's do this one last time. My name is DMuted, and for the past year, I've been the one and only Mimic. Okay, that bit's already done. But yes, you are watching another Mimic video. Is it because I have no self-control when talking about this damn robot who may or may not be canon to the game series my channel is mostly dedicated to? Shut up, yes. But anyway, as I'm sure you're aware of by now, Security Breach Ruin now has a release date of July 25th, which means as of this writing, I have about 11 days before every single theory I've made regarding the Mimic is put to the test. And you know, even though I said that those last 3 theories would be it before the DLC actually arrived, I just had to get this one out there, because I think it not only solves one of the larger problems regarding Security Breach as a whole, but would also 100% confirm the canonicity of the books to the games. We're not talking about the Mimic or Mimic 1, we're talking about a group I'm calling the Mimic Clan. By the way, if you end up enjoying this theory or any of my videos, consider subscribing. It's free, easy, and you can opt out at any time. Now back to mimicking robots. Let me explain. As I'm sure we're all aware of by now, Edwin Murray is the creator of the Mimic, which was originally an endoskeleton most resembling a combination of the Endo 02 and Endo 01 models of endos we see in the FNAF series, based on descriptions given in the books. This Mimic was given legs, a new head after the old one had been damaged, and was moved to the abandoned pizza place under Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex, where it began killing construction workers and teenagers. In between those 2 points of time, however, Fazbear Entertainment caught wind of the potential of the Mimic. What made the Mimic so intriguing was its code. By simply observing something, be it an animatronic or a human, the Mimic would then be able to imitate it, or at least it would try to the best of its ability. This was beneficial to Fazent because it meant they could cut costs in a very creative way, by creating their own mimics. Using the code Mimic1, Fazbear Entertainment constructed a whole line of mimics. However, this line was short-lived to say the least. The mimics were programmed to watch and learn, but then they did something unexpected. They started acting more human-like, specifically as the book puts it, in ways they weren't intended. It then follows that up by having the character reading about the mimics say that they can't make out the next line, other than the words misconstrue, scared, potential disaster, and deactivate remaining mimic endos. Thus, that was the end of the Mimic line. Whatever this deactivation plan was apparently worked, as we've never seen a Mimic endoskeleton in the FNAF series, save for a couple potential retcons here or there. Regardless, I have talked about these characters before, only last time I said I thought they combined to create the Mimic Swarm, which I theorized was the Blob. However, I no longer think that, not just because the theory itself is older and more information about the Mimic has come out, but because there are much better candidates for these mimics in-game. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the Glamrock Endos. These guys make up one of the more tense segments of Security Breach, what's been referred to by fans and Steel Wool alike as the Endo Maze. This section of the game is the workshop where you can snoop around and try to find your way out. Throughout it, you'll be dogged by Glamrock Endos, which function like weeping angels. They freeze when you look at them, and come after you when you look away. Now, what if I told you that there is far more going on in this one section of the game than what I have just told you? This section of the game is highlighted by its moving walls. Where I'm from, we call these doors, but Gregory calls them walls, so we're gonna go with the dumb, stupid child's response to this. These walls are often vandalized, giving the endos opposite directions than they should be following, like, do not give cake to the kid. In fact, a little known fact actually, you can find an endo in this maze with cake smeared across its mouth, as if it was taught to eat cake itself, but there's still more. The final room of the Endo Maze is bizarre. It's a padded, rainbow-colored room with a simple desk looking over the sea of endos before it, with toys and dolls all around it. If you bring Glamrock Freddy here, he explains he's never been allowed here, and describes it almost as if it's his birthplace. And this is what got me thinking. When it comes down to it, the Endo Maze is much more than storage. It's almost like a school, or a daycare, a place for the endos to learn. That desk in the final room, that's most likely where an employee would monitor the development of these endos. The fact that you can find a security badge here is also really interesting, considering that we know that this building has only one living security guard, a security guard who also sometimes switches into Vanny. And I mean, we see evidence of Vanny being down here all over the place. We even see wall art defaced with rabbit ears and the silhouette of a rabbit behind the Endo. I have a feeling you understand where I'm going with this, so I'll just rip the band-aid right off. I think that the Mimic Endos were deactivated and put into storage by Fazbear Entertainment in the past and revisited in the present. I believe that these Glamrock Endos are that original line of mimics. This is why they're stored in what is effectively a children's play area. For those who aren't familiar, the first mimic, the one we follow through most of the epilogues, was initially designed to mimic a child, David, who was 4 years old. It's possible that these mimics are placed in this child's play area because they mimic children. That would also explain the Endo with cake smeared on its face. It doesn't see itself as a robot, it sees itself as a child. The wall art has been vandalized because although they were initially being taught how to tend to guests in a common respectful manner, Vanny has been corrupting them, teaching them to mimic bad behaviors or even mimic William Afton. But here's the thing, if these Endos really are that mimic line, then what does that mean for our main cast? A whole hell of a lot. Let's assume that I'm right and that the Glamrock Endos are the mimics after being retrieved and restored. What does this mean for them? Well, it suddenly clues us in on one of the most unusual things about the Glamrocks, that being their humanity. Every one of the main four in some way, shape, or form acts overly human, expressing personalities and emotions that up until this point in the series, almost every animatronic lacked. Even characters like Funtime Freddy or Circus Baby lacked a lot of the fluid movement or ability to think and reason that the Glamrocks seem to have, especially Glamrock Freddy. And this is why I think the mimics were chosen. Fazbear Entertainment turned a negative into a positive. Were the mimics back then behaving way too human for little Timmy's birthday party? Discontinue them, we'll use them years later in our new mega Pizzaplex and turn that into a good thing. If they act more human, kids will want to meet them, they can have their own personalities, and do things we never previously thought possible. Glamrock Freddy being a mimic especially seems likely to me. Refer to Glamrock Freddy's speech as he descends to the Burn Trap boss fight. What does he say? I know what this is. I have been here before. She brought me here before. I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path. I did not want to, but I had no choice. Now I have a choice. I have changed. My friends are here. They are so angry, confused, but I can protect you. I am not me. Let's really analyze this dialogue as it happens towards the end of the game and is the closest thing Glamrock Freddy gets to what we call a mask-off moment, where a character reveals all their intentions and goals. For this, let's focus on 3 lines, those being, she brought me here before, I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path, and I am not me. If we view these lines through the lens that Freddy is a mimic, then we get an astonishing new idea of what's really happening here. First, she brought me here before is in reference to Vanny, who we see spray painted in the boss room. To me, this is important because if Glamrock Freddy is a mimic, then it's clear that the mimic line is very separate from the original mimic we've seen in the epilogues, who we believe to be Burn Trap. Or at least, Mimic 1 is not defaultly connected to that mimic. It's not a hive mind. Let's look at the next line though, I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path. This one is my favorite to discuss because we now know that if Freddy is a mimic, then him saying I found myself means that he most likely found the original mimic and identified himself with it. This may have been the mimic's ultimate goal on some level, to restore that original mimic Edwin made all those years ago. Also a part of this line, I cleared the path. It's important to note that in the current epilogues, there are no ways in or out of the abandoned pizza place, as construction has halted and the workers sealed the way with concrete. It's then possible that Vanny uses Glamrock Freddy to clear that concrete out so that she can get to the mimic now that it's stuck inside. And that last line, I am not me. Always the powerful line from this monologue, but combined with what we just discussed, it means so much more. For starters, let's compare this to the line, I found myself for the first time. If he's now clarifying that he's not himself, then this to me signifies that Freddy has disconnected from the Mimic, either because Mimic 1 is no longer operating in him, or, more enjoyably in my opinion, spending so much time with Gregory has taught him to detach himself from the Mimic and protect the closest thing he's ever had to an actual friend. This also adds onto some other particular scenes, namely the upgrade scenes when Freddy once again clarifies that he is not himself. If you mess up during this scene, you die. Why? Because in these moments, it's not Freddy in control, it's Mimic 1. In fact, that's a big theme throughout Security Breach. Not split personalities as one might guess, but instead the idea that someone isn't behaving like they would like to. The idea that learned behavior overpowers behavior that they know or think is inherently right. This might be me trying to add some new, unintended theme to Security Breach, but it reminds me a lot of a nature versus nurture debate. The nature is, say, Vanessa, and the nurture, or the outside force teaching her, is Mimic 1, which makes her Vanny. Likewise, Glamrock Freddy, if he is a Mimic, is by nature childlike and kind of dull, but by nurture, he is a rampaging killer animatronic, only to then be nurtured back towards his more innocent self and finally into a protector for Gregory. In the grand scheme of things, I think this would make Security Breach a much more powerful narrative, if only we could actually see this go down more within the game itself. Sometimes I wonder if it's our fault as a community for not picking up on vital details, but can you really blame us at this point? This entire narrative I've crafted could not have been done without a series of short lines in an outside book series. But one last thing regarding the books, shut up. At this point, we all agree that the books are not the ideal way to tell a story so heavily entwined with the games, but to be real, I'm kind of really sick and tired of hearing people complain about it. Instead, I think we should put our energy into these things and really figure them out, because there's still secrets there that we do not know. Until next time, I'm DMuted. Be sure to subscribe, and peace.